started like any other Wednesday. On June 14, 2022, at exactly 7:34 p.m., 16-year-old Lily Cartwright left her part-time job at a local bakery in Springfield, Ohio. Security footage captured her walking alone toward the bus stop just 2 blocks away. She never made it home. The town was quiet, too quiet. And by sunrise, a single mother's worst nightmare had begun. Police launched a search, volunteers canvassed the woods, and #FindLily began trending across the Midwest. But nothing, no backpack, no phone, no trace would be found for nearly 3 weeks. Detectives initially suspected she may have run away until a disturbing tip came in. A gas station attendant, reviewing footage from the night of Lily's disappearance, noticed a white van parked near the alley behind the bakery. The van had been idling for 22 minutes. The footage was grainy, but enough to make out a partial license plate. That clue cracked the case wide open. Lily was an honor roll student, a quiet girl with a deep love for nature photography. Her Instagram was filled with sunlit forests, abandoned barns, and delicate portraits of insects and birds. But recently, friends noticed she'd become withdrawn. A cryptic note in her locker reading, "I think someone's following me," was turned over to investigators. DNA later found inside the van matched Lily's along with traces of a sedative. That van was registered to 39-year-old Marcus Bledsoe, a local maintenance worker with a sealed juvenile record and prior complaints of harassment that had mysteriously gone unprosecuted. When confronted, Marcus denied knowing Lily. But when police obtained a warrant to search his remote cabin 12 miles outside town, what they found chilled them to the bone. Inside a crawlspace beneath the floorboards, Lily's clothing, her phone smashed, and dozens of Polaroid photos. One of them, time-stamped 2 days after her disappearance, showed her alive but visibly drugged. Lily's body was found buried in a shallow grave behind the cabin, covered in lime. The autopsy confirmed she had died from blunt force trauma to the head, likely during an escape attempt. Marcus Bledsoe was charged with kidnapping, unlawful restraint, and first-degree murder. In a rare moment of transparency, the sheriff's department released footage of the confession. It lasted nearly 8 minutes and ended with Marcus muttering, "She was going to ruin everything." He was sentenced to life without parole. But as the community began to heal, Lily's mother received a package postmarked from Montana. Inside was a Polaroid of another girl alive, eyes wide in terror, and written on the back were the words, "She wasn't the first, and she won't be the last." When Lily Cartwright's body was found buried beneath a shallow grave, just half a mile from where she was last seen, everything changed. What began as a missing persons case now turned into a homicide investigation, one that would expose a disturbing truth lurking inside the walls of a seemingly quiet home on Westfield Creek Road. The morning after Lily's body was discovered, Westfield Creek became a circus of law enforcement vehicles, news vans, and desperate neighbors looking for answers. Detectives zeroed in on the man who had placed the anonymous 911 call. Vincent Harrow, 37, a reclusive groundskeeper known for keeping to himself and maintaining the Cartwrights' neighborhood park. But what raised suspicion wasn't just his proximity. It was the fact that Vincent had once been a suspect in a similar case back in 2016, though he was never charged. As forensic units combed through Vincent's one-story home at the edge of the woods, they made a chilling discovery. Hidden behind a wall in the basement was a locked storage room. Inside were children's shoes, old drawings, and a broken necklace later identified by Lily's parents as hers. But what truly shocked investigators was the handwritten journal found on the desk, a disturbing chronicle of stalking, thoughts of purity, and detailed entries describing Lily's walk to school, her daily routines, and chillingly, her final moments. "The girl in the yellow jacket didn't scream," one entry read. Vincent Harrow was arrested within hours. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Fibers on Lily's clothes matched the rug in his basement. His fingerprints were found on the tape used to bind her hands. And most damning of all, his DNA was found beneath her fingernails. During the trial, Harrow showed no emotion. The prosecution laid out a clear, methodical case, backed by forensics and his own damning journal. The motive, A twisted fixation masked under layers of secrecy and mental illness left untreated. The Cartwright family sat through every moment of the trial, their grief palpable. The community demanded answers, and through detailed testimonies and expert witness breakdowns, they got them. Harrow was convicted of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and unlawful restraint. He was sentenced to life without parole. But just when the Cartwrights thought the nightmare was over, something unexpected happened. A retired detective came forward with a sealed box from a closed 2009 case, a case involving a girl who looked eerily similar to Lily. And a footprint found at that scene matched Vincent Harrow's. Just when the Cartwright family began to grieve in peace, a sealed box from a decade-old cold case was opened, revealing a chilling parallel. Another girl, same age, same appearance, same disappearance, and a footprint matching Vincent Harrow's. Had Lily's killer done this before? The girl's name was Amelia Grayson. 10 years earlier, in 2009, she vanished from her backyard in a rural part of Middletown, 2 hours from Lily's hometown. Her body was never found. Her case, tragically, faded into obscurity, just another name on a dusty missing persons board. But now everything had changed. When retired detective Leo Santoro, reviewing cold cases out of personal obsession, noticed the media coverage of Harrow's conviction, he couldn't ignore the similarities. He pulled out Amelia's old file and then called in a favor. Both Amelia and Lily were 12 years old. Both had long brown hair and wore yellow jackets the day they vanished. Both had the same shoe size. And in both cases, neighbors recalled seeing a tall, quiet man lingering near school bus stops in the weeks before. The clincher, a partial boot print found in the dirt near Amelia's last known location, was an exact match to a model of work boots found in Vincent Harrow's closet during the Cartwright investigation. The boot wasn't sold widely, it was issued as part of a municipal landscaping contract. Harrow was employed by the same contractor during that time. Authorities exhumed records from 2009. When detectives searched the digital archives of Harrow's personal journals, they found something shocking. Entries dating back to 2008, cryptic notes about the girl in the orchard, mentions of MG, and one phrase scrawled over and over: "What's buried once may never rest." Investigators returned to the Grayson family home and surveyed the wooded acre behind the property using ground-penetrating radar. What they found shocked the nation. Just 15 feet from the rear fence, a small grave was uncovered. DNA confirmed it was Amelia Grayson. Like Lily, she had been bound and suffocated. Unlike Lily, Amelia's body was so decomposed that full answers weren't possible. But it was enough. The state filed additional charges against Harrow for the murder of Amelia Grayson. Though already serving life without parole, the Grayson family demanded a separate trial, not for punishment, but for truth. The prosecution obliged, presenting the new evidence and forensic links with full transparency. The jury deliberated for only 2 hours. Harrow was convicted again. At the sentencing, Amelia's mother spoke. "We lived for 10 years not knowing. Now we finally know. And knowing the truth is its own justice." But just 1 week after the second conviction, an anonymous letter arrived at the DA's office. It contained only 2 things: a photograph of another girl in a yellow jacket, and a handwritten message: "They never looked in the basement." A second conviction. Closure for 2 grieving families. But then came the letter, an anonymous envelope with a grainy photo of a third girl in a yellow jacket. The chilling message: "They never looked in the basement." Now investigators feared Vincent Harrow wasn't just a killer. He was a serial predator. And he may not have acted alone. When the letter arrived at the prosecutor's office, most thought it was a hoax, a cruel prank. But something about the photograph stopped them cold. The girl in the image wasn't Lily Cartwright. And she wasn't Amelia Grayson. Her features were softer, her skin darker. But the yellow jacket was identical. Even the background cracked pavement, rusty swing set matched the park behind Harrow's childhood home in Rockford, where he lived until age 17. And there was something else. The image had a timestamp. April 11, 1997. 7 years before Amelia. 24 years before Lily. The girl was quickly identified as Shayla Monroe, age 11, reported missing in 1997. Her case had gone ice cold within 6 months, and she'd been written off as a runaway by authorities, a common fate for black girls at the time. But now, her face was on every major news outlet. And with that came a wave of new leads. A former neighbor recalled something she never told police. A strange smell from the Harrow basement the summer Shayla vanished. Another remembered seeing Harrow, then just 17, digging in the backyard at night. Detectives rushed to secure a new warrant for the Harrow family home, which was now abandoned. When forensic teams entered the rotting structure, they found the basement sealed off behind a false wall. Behind it was a dirt floor and a single child's shoe. Cadaver dogs confirmed it. Remains were present. It took days to excavate the site safely. What they uncovered sent shockwaves across the country. A human remains wrapped in aged cloth. A yellow jacket buried with the body. A rusted bracelet engraved with them. And worst of all, a second smaller skeleton, one the forensics team hadn't expected. DNA confirmed the first victim was Shayla Monroe. The second, a 9-year-old girl named Kendra Salas, missing from a nearby city just 8 months after Shayla. The media now dubbed Vincent Harrow the basement butcher. Clarity, resolution, justice. New charges were filed. Despite already serving 2 life sentences, prosecutors pushed forward to honor each family and every lost voice. In court, Harrow remained silent, but the evidence was overwhelming. Old journals, neighborhood reports, the recovered bodies, and forensic timelines painted a devastatingly clear picture. The court proceedings were broadcast for full public transparency. This time, Harrow didn't contest the charges. His public defender issued a brief statement. "My client will not deny nor confirm any allegations." He relinquishes his right to speak. The judge issued 2 additional life sentences. Community vigils were held for Shayla and Kendra. For the first time, the justice system acknowledged them publicly, by name and with dignity. Their families, who had waited over 2 decades, finally had answers. The police commissioner publicly apologized for law enforcement's early dismissal of Shayla's case in 1997, acknowledging racial disparities and systemic failures. An independent panel was formed to review all cold cases connected to Harrow's known locations. But just as peace seemed possible, a new audio recording surfaced. Left on a voicemail at a local news station, it was heavily distorted, but chillingly familiar. A man's voice. Whoa. Calculated. Harrow wasn't alone. He never was. He was the cleanup guy. "I picked the girls." The file was signed simply, RC. Just when the world thought the nightmare ended with Vincent Harrow behind bars for life, a distorted voicemail changed everything. Harrow wasn't alone. He never was. He was the cleanup guy. "I picked the girls." Signed, RC. Now, detectives are reopening every page of the case, because if Harrow was only the tool, who was the hand? The voicemail, which arrived at a local investigative newsroom, was unlike anything authorities expected. Forensics teams immediately ran audio enhancement. Hidden in the static and distortion were subtle indicators, a faint train whistle, a bird call, and a ticking clock. Analysts narrowed down the likely location, a residential neighborhood in Oak Hollow, just 23 miles from where Lily Cartwright disappeared. Even more telling, there was a 1999 cold case from Oak Hollow, a missing girl named Mara Jensen, last seen walking home from a piano recital. Her case was never connected to Harrow. Until now. Investigators reanalyzed Harrow's known movements in 1999. And that's when they found something explosive. In Harrow's old school files, buried in a forgotten police evidence box, was a single field trip permission slip. He had attended a youth mentorship program in Oak Hollow the same week Mara disappeared. But the signature on the bottom, the parent or guardian line, wasn't from his mother. It was signed Richard Claiborne. Initials, RC. Claiborne had no official criminal record, but he was a former child welfare coordinator who lost his job in 2001 under undisclosed circumstances. He vanished from public records in 2003. But a photo found online by an amateur sleuth posted in a 2002 group photo for a youth resilience initiative confirmed the connection. And next to him in the image was Vincent Harrow. A search warrant was obtained for Claiborne's last known residence, a now decrepit farmhouse on the outskirts of town. Inside, authorities found a hidden storage room sealed with drywall. What they discovered confirmed their worst fears. Dozens of labeled VHS tapes, each marked with a name and date. A wall covered in maps with red string and photographs. A handwritten ledger titled Inventory with notes like Too Old, Pass, and Perfect Age, 9 to 11. One entry stood out. Lily C. Delivered. VH will clean. Claiborne hadn't just been involved. He orchestrated everything. Claiborne was tracked to a cabin in northern Idaho using satellite phone data and surveillance from National Park entry logs. In a high-stakes FBI raid, he was apprehended without incident. During interrogation, he was eerily calm. I didn't kill them. I created opportunities. Vincent, he was eager to please. He refused to name any others who might have helped him. Claiborne was charged with 5 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, child abduction, and complicity in first-degree murder. The court was packed. Families of victims, reporters, child advocacy groups all waited to see justice done. This time, the investigation was fully transparent. Every search warrant, interrogation, and piece of evidence was made public through a dedicated DOJ website. The Attorney General issued a formal apology to the families of all previously ignored or misclassified victims. Lily Cartwright's mother was present for every day of the trial. She told reporters, "It wasn't just one monster. There were layers. Now at least we've peeled one more away." Claiborne was convicted on all counts. At sentencing, the judge said, "You didn't wield the knife, Mr. Claiborne. You handed it over. Again and again. That makes you no less guilty. In fact, it makes you the architect of evil." He received 4 consecutive life sentences without parole. Just before Claiborne was transferred to federal prison, he handed his public defender a folded piece of paper. No name, no explanation. Just 5 words written in block letters. "Check the Sacramento foster files." When agents did, they found the file of Rebecca Lane, a 10-year-old who went missing in 1995. Her foster brother, Richard Claiborne, before Lily Cartwright, before Mara Jensen. There was someone else. A name hidden in a dusty foster care file from 1995. Rebecca Lane, 10. Her case was marked runaway. No media coverage. No police search. Just silence. Till now. Following Richard Claiborne's cryptic note, FBI agents requested sealed juvenile records from Sacramento's foster system archives. What they uncovered was deeply unsettling. Rebecca Lane had vanished on September 3, 1995, from the Parkview foster home, where she lived with 3 other children including a 17-year-old foster sibling listed under the name Rick Clay. That's right. Claiborne had been in the system himself, under a shortened alias. Even more disturbing, her file included a psychiatric report submitted 2 weeks before she vanished. It noted that Rebecca had told her caseworker, "Rick watches me while I sleep. He tells me I'll disappear like the others." The report was dismissed. Her disappearance, labeled a habitual flight risk. No Amber Alert. No missing posters. Nothing. Records showed the Parkview home was shut down in 1997 due to a series of unexplained injuries among its residents. But when agents revisited the dilapidated property in 2025, cadaver dogs immediately picked up a scent in the crawl space beneath the home. There, buried beneath layers of broken boards and plastic wrap, were the remains of a small girl, wrapped in a floral bedsheet. Dental records confirmed it. Rebecca Lane had been there the entire time. Forensics revealed signs of blunt force trauma to the skull, and binding marks on the wrists and ankles. She had died the same night she was reported missing. Claiborne was re-interviewed. When confronted with the findings, he simply said, "She knew too much. Even at 10. She was my practice run." This confession unraveled a terrifying timeline. Rebecca Lane wasn't just a victim. She was the beginning. A 1995. Rebecca Lane, age 10. A 1999. Mara Jensen, age 11. A 2006. Emily Farrow, age 9. A 2011. Tina Rosario, age 10. A 2019. Lily Cartwright, age 11. Every few years the same MO. A young girl. Vulnerable. Forgotten by the system. Selected. Groomed. Then vanished. Following the discovery, the Department of Justice opened a nationwide audit of foster care records from 1990 to 2010. They found over 43 cases of girls listed as runaways that bore striking similarities. A task force, Operation Hollow Echo, was launched to investigate these cold cases and tie them to Claiborne or other potential accomplices. Meanwhile, the state of California issued a formal apology to Rebecca Lane's family, including her now 41-year-old biological sister, who had spent years believing Rebecca had simply run away. Claiborne faced a new trial this time for the murder of Rebecca Lane. Prosecutors argued that this case proved premeditation stretching back decades, and that his prior life sentence was merely a fraction of what he deserved. He was convicted within 3 days. Sentenced again. Life without parole. No possibility of appeal. Outside the courthouse, a candlelight vigil was held for all 5 confirmed victims. Photos of the girls line the steps. Handwritten notes read, "You were never forgotten. They just weren't listening." While cleaning out Claiborne's storage unit, authorities found a locked steamer trunk. Inside was a single videotape labeled 1993. Project Halcyon/Subject 01. The girl in the footage wasn't Rebecca Lane. She was younger, blonde, and still breathing. Behind the camera, a voice said, "Let's see how she does in the maze." When you stare long enough into the abyss, sometimes the abyss blinks first. After 6 long months, the Lily Cartwright case had become a quiet storm within law enforcement circles. While the public had moved on, the people of Walton County hadn't. And neither had Detective Claire Hollis. Following the arrest of Randall "Randy" Keene, a former substitute teacher at Lily's school, forensic teams unearthed a hidden chamber beneath his property, sealed behind a rotted cellar door camouflaged by rusted lawn equipment. Inside were newspaper clippings, locks of hair, and disturbing drawings, each corresponding to a girl reported missing within a 100-mile radius of Walton over the past 8 years. Lily's picture was front and center, her school photo laminated and nailed to the wall. The cause of death was finally confirmed. Acute asphyxiation caused by duct tape over her mouth and nose, left unattended while restrained in a soundproof compartment. A small, heartbreaking detail emerged: her wrists showed signs of struggle, but she hadn't been sedated. She had been conscious, aware, and trying to fight. It was this detail that shifted the prosecution's narrative from manslaughter to premeditated first-degree murder. Keene's trial became national news. His defense claimed mental instability and unresolved trauma from his own childhood, but the evidence was overwhelming. Dozens of digital files, videos, and journals laid bare his methodical planning. Justice was swift. The jury took just under 4 hours to return with a verdict: guilty on all counts. Randall Keene was sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus 120 years for related charges of abduction and sexual misconduct. The courtroom erupted not in cheers, but in silent tears. For Lily. For every girl who hadn't made it home. Transparency in the case was unprecedented. Walton PD, in coordination with the FBI, released full investigation logs, search warrants, and even audio interviews with community members, edited for victim privacy. This transparency fostered healing. People no longer whispered about Lily, they talked. They grieved, they remembered. Detective Hollis, despite solving the case, didn't celebrate. Instead, she visited the Cartwrights every month. On the first anniversary of Lily's disappearance, the town gathered at Havenridge Park. A cherry blossom tree was planted in Lily's name. Her favorite song, Somewhere Only We Know, played gently from a single speaker. But just as closure seemed within reach, Hollis received a letter at her precinct. No return address. Inside, a single photo. Another missing girl. The photo was dated 3 days ago, after Keane had already been behind bars. The nightmare wasn't over. The further you go into the dark, the brighter the truth burns. At precisely 6:42 a.m. on March 14, 2024, a jury of 12 filed into the silent courtroom. 8 grueling months had passed since Lily Cartwright's body was recovered. 8 months of evidence, heartbreak, press, and lies. And now, at last, Judgment Day had arrived. The accused, Cameron Ryland, Lily's former neighbor, stood motionless, pale, and with eyes sunken from months behind bars. His demeanor was cold, remorseless. As the jury foreman stood, a tension gripped the room like a vice. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty on all counts. Audible gasps rippled across the courtroom. Lily's mother collapsed into her sister's arms, weeping quietly. Her father stared ahead, tearful but unblinking, as if finally released from a long nightmare. In the weeks following the trial, details emerged that painted a chilling portrait of how and why Lily Cartwright had died. Cameron Ryland had moved into the Cartwrights' neighborhood just under a year before Lily's disappearance. A once promising engineer, he had quietly battled a deepening obsession with control and surveillance. Security footage retrieved from a hidden server in his garage revealed months of footage of Lily, walking to school, feeding the family dog, reading on the porch. She never knew she was being watched. Ryland's obsession turned sinister the night of her disappearance. Prosecutors revealed that he had lured Lily with a fake message, claiming her mother had been in an accident. Frantic and alone, Lily had followed him into his vehicle. She was never seen alive again. A week after her disappearance, Ryland had buried her body in the woods behind an abandoned greenhouse, 6 miles from town. Her cause of death, manual strangulation, determined by the medical examiner to have occurred within an hour of her abduction. Toxicology reports showed no drugs in her system. Her final moments were horrifyingly lucid. The case ignited national outrage and a broader conversation around child safety and digital surveillance. Lily's Law, passed 3 months after Ryland's conviction, now mandates real-time school check-ins and GPS alerts for minors in the state. Ryland was sentenced to life without parole, plus 25 years for obstruction of justice and unlawful surveillance. As reporters swarmed outside the courthouse, Lily's parents gave a single, unified statement. Our daughter didn't just vanish, she was stolen. But thanks to every person who refused to let her story be forgotten, she's now more than a tragedy. She's a symbol of vigilance and justice. Today, a memorial bench sits in Lily's favorite park, engraved with her handwriting. Kindness is how we stay alive in people's hearts. The true crime community, led by podcasts, YouTube documentaries, and victim advocacy channels, rallied around Lily's story not just to remember her, but to ensure that her case marks a turning point in how we respond to the unthinkable. The story of Lily Cartwright began with a quiet town, an innocent girl, and a single night of horror. But it ends with accountability, with truth exposed, and with justice finally served. Subscribe to the channel, like, and comment for chilling crime stories.